This is the last video in my Black History Month series, and I have a very special guest here today, my mom, Akua Dixon, cellist, composer. Mom, thank you for coming to talk to me today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here.
So I wanted to talk to you about artists that created a space where there wasn't one before. And I mean that because in previous episodes we've talked about how Black artists in particular have been locked out of a lot of opportunities, but there were some pioneers who created a space for Black creativity to flourish. And so that is what we're diving into today. So I wanted to start by asking you about the work that you did with Max Roach and the Double Quartet, because I don't know that I've ever seen a double quartet like that, ever, before or since.
Well, I doubt that you have. Max by himself was so unique and so special an artist that any of the ensembles that he created were one-of-a-kind ensembles.
Yeah.
And all open doors, whether it was his smaller jazz groups or whether it was Boom and the Double Quartet, everything had his unique signature.
Even the band with the choir that he had was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the freedom music that he did in addition to the jazz that he did. These are all unique outlets.
So talk to me about what it was like rehearsing for the Double Quartet when that was something that was a completely new thing.
Well, you don't remember? You were there.
I don't remember. That I do remember Max like a little bit older, but I don't remember the Double Quartet rehearsals. No.
Okay, well you were in the belly, so
okay, so I get a pass. So wait, you were pregnant and rehearsing with Max Roach.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes. Max decided to get Maxine, Gail, and I together in the summer before you were born. That's 1981, because he wanted to form the Max Roach Double Quartet and subsequently later on the Uptown String Quartet.
Right.
So his concept was to have a string quartet with his band, which was saxophone, trumpet, bass, and drums.
Interesting.
Okay. So he had some people write music for that ensemble. Cecil Bridgewater wrote an amazing composition, and he had Peter Phillips write one based on his jazz solos. Okay, so that was a really challenging work to do, and one that was so different than almost any piece I've played. We had to play like a drummer.
And how did you learn how to do that? How did you rehearse that work? And where did you rehearse?
Okay.
Because that's another part of
yes.
it, right? Like
yes.
a lot of people had like institutions or whatever, but you know, if you don't have that, where were you guys rehearsing?
Okay. A lot of the rehearsals were at my apartment in New York City. Okay. Some were at Max's home. And later on, after you were born, we rehearsed at my mom's house in the Bronx, because she had you upstairs and the string quartet could rehearse downstairs.
Wow.
Okay. So it was not easy to do as a new mom also to work like that. But like I said, Max was a perfectionist, and we rehearsed every day at one point, 9 to 3 or 9 to 5, and then got ready and went to the theater and played our jobs.
Yeah, because you guys were mostly doing Broadway shows, right?
Broadway shows and recordings.
Oh my gosh,
and stuff like
how did
that.
your fingers not bleed?
Well, you know, I was young and I wasn't thinking about it. Music was my 9 to 5 and overboard.
And like your 5 to 9, apparently.
Yes.
But you created something that hadn't existed before, and even without the support of, you know, any kind of institution or grant or anything like that, you guys were just determined to make it happen and rehearsed in each other's homes until you created this beautiful thing, and then you went on tour. How old was I when you went on tour?
You were 1.5 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, when we went to Europe for the summer.
That's amazing. Like, what was it like being in that rehearsal? That's what I want to know.
I have to say that Max was the leader, and it was his concept.
Yeah.
Okay? Period, end of sentence. He had a flow, he had a determination, he had a sound in his head. he played every phrase rhythmically, sometimes even just on a telephone book with brushes while we were in the house, and had us go and play back every phrase, how each note should come out sounding. He couldn't say to us up bow, down bow, long, short. He would sing it, he would play it, and we would have to copy it and mimic it. And we'd also have to be thin-skinned enough to be able to tolerate that was an almost and have to do it again.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but you kept doing it until you got it right.
That's right.
I think it's also amazing that he created a space for you when you were pregnant and when you were a new mom, with the flexibility of coming to your house or going to the Bronx to your mom's house, to still be able to work in his band, because I feel like even nowadays, like, most people don't give you any kind of maternity anything. Like, that's really amazing that in the 80s that he was so inclusive.
Well, I have to agree with you on that. You know, we also rehearsed, he was living in Manhattan, so we also rehearsed at his apartment some of the time with the quartet. But, you know, Max himself had children.
Yeah.
And he really made it made sure I got the proper breaks. He would say, okay, it's time to take a break. When we rehearsed at his place, his wife would let me stay in her study and put my feet up for a minute and relax. He gave me time to regenerate. When I was on the road and you were home as a little girl, you know, he was very conscious of those kind of things and the fact that I was missing my child, you know, and making a sacrifice to be on the tour.
Yeah.
So it was important for him. And you're right, I can't think of any other job that I've had that someone has been that inclusive of a woman in that state.
Yeah, I think there's so much talk nowadays about inclusion, but something that often gets left out of those kinds of conversations is motherhood or parenthood. There's dads that need that kind of support. I think it would be great that dads got more support so that they could be more present with their children.
Yes.
And so to think that Max Roach was not only Max Roach and created this incredible space for this double quartet and had this beautiful vision and rhythmic concept and spent hours and hours working with you guys to develop that he was able to do that and be supportive, just says to me that, like, people that aren't doing that are full of it.
Yes. Well,
because it is absolutely possible.
And
it's absolutely possible.
In addition, like
in
I said,
any industry, not just in music.
He had a high bar
for
what he wanted to achieve with the ensemble.
And he did it.
And he's let us know in the beginning that he was not lowering it, you know.
Right.
He wanted to sit down and play and do what he needed to do, and we had to be ready to just take care of business with what we needed to do. He was willing to prepare us.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But he had his mind set on what he wanted to achieve with the sound of that ensemble, and he made it possible. He handpicked that foundation for that quartet.
Yeah.
Knowing that in New York City at that time, Gail and I were very uniquely joined and had experiences as string players playing African American music.
Yeah.
And I don't mean a concert here and a concert there with a particular performer. We worked with Max for a long time, so we were able to really get to know his concept. Okay. We also, Gail and I, Maxine too, because we worked at the Apollo. We worked at Westbury. We worked at Broadway. So working, say, with a band like James Brown.
Yeah.
Or with,
man,
you know,
talk about rhythm.
Yes, or with Nestor Torres and
Beautiful.
bands like that. We had to play constantly, rhythmically, and sonically together.
And so that's a completely different approach to string playing than classical techniques,
Yes.
even though you were all classically trained.
And we were still doing classical gigs.
And you were still doing classical
Yes.
gigs. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Noel Pointer.
Oh, yes.
And the string reunion.
Yes.
Which, if you've not heard them, I encourage you to go and check that out. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. Because that's also something that did not exist before he created that beautiful vision. Can you tell people what it was and Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. Well, this was before Noel was famous as Noel Pointer.
Right.
Okay. We were all friends growing up in New York City, and like I said, hanging out, playing jobs together. Especially memorable were the jobs at the Apollo Theater.
Yeah.
You know, because we managed to be a unique force there. Before then, first of all, this is the 70s. Women weren't even working in orchestras and on Broadway and places like that. It was an all-male situation. When the Apollo wanted a string section, of course they had to use some women. There weren't enough African-American men to fill that role, and that's basically what worked uptown. When I was a kid, most of the black musicians worked uptown, most of the white musicians worked downtown.
The Apollo also created a space where there wasn't
Yes.
one before, because they were creating a space for a lot of black artists to not only work in the orchestra and in the bands, but like headliners, to
Yes.
have a space
Yes.
to perform.
Well, they had a band room in the basement, okay? We were young girls and we weren't going in the basement,
Right.
you know.
You and Gail.
Yes, and whoever else was in the
Yeah,
string
yeah,
section.
yeah.
There were some other women, but we weren't
I know
going
Grandpa
in
would not have been
No.
happy with that.
We were raised to know not even to go down
Yeah.
there. So we asked them for a space, and the only thing they had was the attic way up in the top where we had to climb. But all the string players just climbed up there, the guys too, because we were all friends. We were in orchestras and stuff together. And we played chamber music between all of those shows.
Oh, how
you know.
cute.
So I was scratching out different arrangements of things, trying to figure out how to get a string ensemble to sound a certain way.
Right.
And balance orchestrationally. And so I would write out something, they would play it, you know, also I'd get some feedback. So it was a good learning ground in
Right.
between during those shows. Noel had the idea to form a string orchestra, okay, of all of us and try to get some work and to get some community and brotherhood amongst African American string players. His parents had a house on Carroll Street in Brooklyn, and they gave us use of his basement. So he got Gail to be the president. He decided to be the vice president.
Really? I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Gail was the president, and Maxine Roach was secretary or treasurer within the ensemble. Also, we wound up at most times having for our concerts somewhere like 30 string players.
That's
you know,
amazing. All black?
all black.
In the 70s?
In the 70s. So in my case, I didn't want to have a black ensemble that only played European classical music.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Noel decided that if that was the case, then I should be the director of new music.
Okay.
And it was my
I love
job.
how organized this is. He didn't just have a vision and didn't just say, like, we're going to play some music in my parents' basement. Like,
Yes.
you guys had a president, a secretary, like,
Oh, yes.
this was organized.
Yes.
You guys created your own structure
Yes.
for black music to flourish.
That's right.
That's amazing.
String music.
Black string music.
Yes.
Yes.
Most of our concerts were mostly all string ensembles like that.
And did you have any other instruments that played with you?
We had percussion. We had piano.
Okay.
Sure. One particular concert that I really remember is a concert with Jazzmobile with Rahsaan Roland Kirk.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Rahsaan wanted to write a piece with strings and his ensemble, so he got me to notate it for him, and Frank Foster conducted, and it was his band plus members of the String Reunion that performed
Wow.
that concert at Jazzmobile. And it
Do
was
you
just
know if that
amazing.
was filmed? I would love to see that.
I don't think so, but I really don't know.
I'm going to start searching and digging through some archives.
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
there's an audio recording somewhere.
Yes. The piece was called Journey Song.
Journey song.
Yes. Trying to make it over the hump. You know.
I got to find this.
Yes.
That's really incredible that even despite being locked out of so much, both financially, educationally, and musically in America, that you guys persisted and flourished and were able to still create your own spaces and create your own music and encourage each other and play together to keep Black American music alive.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sitting here and having this chat with me. We could have sat here for like 3 more hours, but
Wow.
we'll have to do more. We'll have to circle back and talk some more about your amazing career. Thank you for being a part of my Black History Month celebration.
Thank you for having me.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for watching Growing Up Jazz. Women's History Month is next, so keep watching.